Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you had a great weekend. We're back with Can-Am SimSport tonight for their Monday Night Championships. This is the DTM Championship Round 4 at the Red Bull Ring, a.k.a. Spielberg. It's a great track. We raced it in ARL Season 2 IMSA. We raced full circuit. Tonight we'll be racing the short circuit. Sprint race will be 22 laps, and the feature race will be 44 laps. We'll be fixing to be live here any moment. Do apologize for the late start. Was battling some issues on the Twitch side of things regarding my streaming software. Had to do things the old-fashioned way. That's okay. We are live nonetheless for what I'm sure is promising to be a very good race. Pulling up some statistics here. So hard to read some of these numbers. Good Lord. Okay. So as per usual, we will be going through the leaderboard once free practice begins. I'm only going to do the top 10 just because there's a lot of results to dissect. But yes, Round 4 DTM Championship tonight. We're just waiting to get everything rolling here. Looking forward to this race. These guys are putting on a bit of a show. We are expecting a little bit of weather, it sounds like, during qualifying. So really going to potentially shake up the field for anybody that happens to be stronger in qualifying, stronger in the rain than in the dry. Nice field coming together here. 13 drivers so far. I believe I don't count towards the 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Fuck. 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah. Oh, no, I do count. I do count. So it's now we have 13 drivers. Folks continue to trickle in here. I'm glad it seems they're running a couple minutes behind. I was worried I was running behind, and seems like everybody might have been running just a little behind, so that's good for me. Folks, it's been cold these last few days for me, so I'm a little bit congested, more so than usual. I know I kind of step away from the mic every now and again to cough and get shit out of my lungs, but fighting it hard today. We're going to muscle on through it. So we get ready for the 4th round of the DTM Championship, or the 5th round of the DTM Championship. I believe I think they forgot to update I went off of their forecast sheet, and their forecast sheet says Well, Now it's not loading. Yeah, their forecast sheet says round 4, but I do not believe this is round 4. I do believe this is round 5. It is, in fact, round 5. I don't know if I can rename it from the stream or not. Oh, here I can. I can edit it right here. On Twitch, anyways. YouTube, I'm just going to have to go back and rename. Okay. Twitch may just need a little refresh. It'll be good to roll. We're going to go through the leaderboard here. Starting with our championship leader currently, that is Nikita, sitting P1 in the championship with 654 points. A rather tumultuous start to the season, really. Nikita's had a lot of instances where he's been able to string together a really good sprint race or a really good feature, but not able to keep both. Having incredible pace in various stages of various types of races, but not able to really sweep a weekend. However, last week, in commanding fashion, won the sprint and the feature, which really helped turn the championship fight around. Behind him, Bihilto Hero, about 19 points back. Or, I'm sorry, 21 points back. No, 19 points. 19 points with 535 points. That's Heel-Toe Hero, a.k.a. Ian McClure. 635 points in P2 in the championship. Mark Shine in P3, Obscure Hi-Fi, with 621 points. And pretty healthy. Most of these gaps now are starting to expand over other drivers in the field in the top 3. Following Mark Shine, you've got Tactical Nuclear Pingu, who's still in the pit box with 597 points in P4 in the championship. And just 5 points behind is Ben Grabo, 592 points. And this is where the championship starts to get a little bit closer, folks. These 3 drivers, Pingu at 597 points, Grabo at 592 points, and then 581 points is Joe Dirt, who has had some pretty incredible qualifying and race pace and some incredible recovery drives from this number 23 machine. So definitely somebody we're going to want to keep an eye out on this evening. Second place Merchant, Joshua Colbreth, sitting in 7th place in the championship with 545 points. And now the gap starts to open up just a smidge to the guys further back. I don't see Something Fierce currently sitting 8th in the championship with 477 points. Waylon Crace sitting 9th in the championship with 417 points. Sturhaas sitting 10th in the championship with 383 points. That is your top 10 as it stands this evening. Spiky Cactus treating us with nice qualifying or nice warm-up pace here. A little bit of racing going on too. And we will watch our championship leader here as he zips around the short circuit of Spielberg's Red Bull Ring. Fantastic little circuit we've got here. Perfect for these cars. It's like a reverse oval rectangle with a little bit of a chicane in it. Nikita, still not your fastest driver on pace this evening. So far, Joe Dirt has got that title in the warm-up. A little bit of a slide there. So, as I mentioned, folks, we are expecting a little rain during qualifying. Could shake up the running order a little bit for the guys that are better in qualifying. But let's ride on board with your current warm-up leader into turn one. This is the Niki Lauda curve. And then sharp into turn two. It's a nice big wide open hairpin into Worth, which is kind of the chicane I was telling you about. It's not really a chicane, but the track map kind of looks that way. Big long back straightaway. Really giving these cars a chance to open their legs, or stretch their legs, I'm sorry. Much more appropriate the latter way. Bit of a slide coming into Rindt Corner. Nice wide exit and down into Red Bull Mobile. That's the final corner down into the front straightaway. As Nikita tops charts once again, Joe Dirt will be crossing the line with no time gained. Seems to have exited track limits there on that pass. And now Nikita trying to capitalize, picking up a little bit of a slipstream here from the car ahead. That I believe is something fierce up ahead. But we're very close at the top of the field here, folks. P1 through 5 are 3 to 4 tenths off from each other. Now, admittedly, this is practice. We're not handing out trophies for the warm-up sessions, but certainly something we want to keep an eye on and monitor as the race goes on. One thing I'll point out, too, folks, a lot of people struggling getting off the actual paved circuit and onto the rumble strips and the painted surfaces. Seen a lot of local yellows as drivers have run wide, slipped, especially this corner here, and into Red Bull Mobile. Definitely a bit of a challenge. The drivers have to face how far they can push these cars, how far they can push the tires before they start to let go. Nikita not showing any signs of slowing down. Another local yellow, as I'm assuming it's honestly people going out of track limits as I'm seeing these local yellows appear. I think it's largely drivers going a little bit wide as now Joe Dirt rounding the final corner. Trying to claw back any amount of time. He is now 1/10 flat short of Nikita in the running order of the warm-up session. It was Ben Grabo stopped off the edge there. Ben Grabo hoping for a good night over Pingu this evening. Hope to rake in some results that claw back some points and get him back ahead of Tactical Nuclear Pingu in the championship fight. As folks, this is our penultimate round. Only got one race after this. It's been an absolute treat to spectate this event, to spectate this series, watch these guys race, and truly an honor to be asked into the broadcast booth. I appreciate everybody over at CASS for giving me platform to go and enjoy everything they have to offer over there. Joe Dirt still trailing just a little behind Nikita, who has not yet found more pace. Second place Merchant also trailing a little bit behind, but now we're up to the top 8 within a second of your practice leader. 38 seconds remain in the warm-up session. Joe Dirt's crossed the line next, and behind him, we've got Orange Hat 44 spun around on the exit of Red Bull Mobile. This will be, I believe, your last flying lap. We're going to jump back to Waylon Crace to see if he's got any time to gain on the board. No time posted and a gain, and Nikita no time posted to gain. Second place Merchant will be the next to cross the line. No time gained from Merchant. Oh, maybe he gained a little bit of time there, up to P7 with a 49.698. Spiky Cactus across the line remains P5 with a 49.256. And it looks as though Joe Dirt has aborted the run, possibly a mistake, leaving the rest of the field, including Nikita, to continue to try to open the gap. Nikita now retired to pit lane, leaving Waylon Crace to try to crack into potentially the top 8, top 7, if possible. No time gained for Waylon Crace. We go back to Nate Z. No time gained for Nate Z up to the top 5 here. We've got Ben Grabo trying to continue to work his way up the field in the practice session. No time gained for Mr. Grabo. That is your warm-up session all but concluded. As we move into what might be a bit of a damp and depressing qualifying, folks. Get your popcorn, get your raincoats. Most importantly, get your umbrellas, because it's going to rain here at qualifying. What I'm excited to see and interested to see, folks, is how this affects... Oh, this isn't just a misting either. This is a proper rain. So now we'll begin waiting for drivers to leave the box and get out onto their first lap. We see Spiky Cactus will be the first out of pit lane. We'll watch him go for his out lap, get the tires up to temp. This will sincerely shake up the qualifying. Hey, welcome to the stream, Ryan Fisher. Is this an ARL event? This is not. So I'm sure you know second place Merchant and Jeff H from our ARL Formula USA races, but they also run in this racing league. You can see second place Merchant right here. Merchant reached out to me a few weeks ago, asked if I'd be willing to do the commentary for CASS in the DTM Championship, and I accepted, and it's been an absolute treat to watch these guys. Some great racing, Ryan. If you're bored and you want to hang out and get some good action, these guys put on one hell of a show. As I was saying, really going to shake up the running order a bit because we've got some drivers, I think, that are much more comfortable and capable in the wet than others. Some drivers coming to mind. Second place Merchant, very confident in the wet. Doesn't seem to phase him too much. Heel Toe Hero is another driver that we've seen do some pretty incredible things in wet weather conditions, as well as Ben Grabo. And we talk about Ben Grabo in that championship fight with Pingu. Only a few points separate these two. One decent result, even in the sprint race tonight, could really shake up the championship fight for those two specifically. Pingu having a bit of a treacherous start to the season. Ben started pretty strong, had a little bit of a taper, but he's still pretty consistently, top 5 material. And I think we've really got a race on our hands tonight for that position in the championship. Ryan Fisher says, thanks. Yeah, this looks like a fun championship. Absolute blast to watch, man. These guys are incredibly fun to watch. Great driving on these guys' part. As second place Merchant now topping the charts in qualifying with a 56.612. Folks, remember, only 5 minutes to qualify, so not a lot of opportunity to put down a massive flyer when the weather is like this. It's raining sideways, track's soaked, tires are not coming up to temp the way you want them to. You're trying to get acclimated to the car in the rain. There's a lot going on, a lot working against you here. So to be able to put down a fast qualifying lap in just 5 minutes, really a testament to the drivers that we have on the grid this evening. Is now Joe Dirt crossing the line and topping the leaderboard. Merchant currently nearly 6/10 up, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough to take Joe Dirt, as now one of our big players in the rain we've seen top the leaderboard. As Heel Toe Hero crosses the line with a 55.582. As I said, one of the drivers to watch in this inclement weather. He's really showing us that the pace has not fallen off since round 2. But Nikita, strong qualifying effort in the wet at a 55.246. Folks, that is going to be really hard to beat. Championship leader, one of the most rapid drivers we've seen on the grid this season. Now sitting on the pole position. Not a good lap for Joe Dirt. Second place Merchant will be looking hopefully to answer handsomely. We also want to keep an eye on Ben Grabo back here, sitting in P6 currently. But I think there is something to be gained for Grabo back there. Possibly a top 5 start, maybe even a top 3 if he finds a rhythm. No time gained for Merchant, but definitely a consistent lap. Not a lot of fall off. We're just 0.07 of a second slower than his best, so it's the kind of consistency you like to see from somebody that's fighting for the front of the field. Ben Grabo will cross the line, nearly 0.2 gained, but not quite enough to knock Hi-Fi out of the top 5. Grabo will get another go at it with the clock rounding out to the end. This will be Hi-Fi's final lap. Joe Dirt jumps 3.9 tenths to the good in his last lap, putting him P2, and he will get another go. Heel Toe Hero has retired to the box. Obscure Hi-Fi will be crossing the line, hoping to further secure his spot in the top 5. Does he have any gains to post? No time gained for Hi-Fi. Ben Grabo has dove into the pit box. Joe Dirt's opting to stay out and maximizing track time in the wet. Really doing everything he can. Try to chisel away some time at Nikita, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. And he goes around hard into the infield tire wall on the approach to Red Bull Mobile. And that is unfortunately a qualifying session over for Joe Dirt. Ryan Fisher says, I'd love to try announcing alongside you in the future. I don't know if that would be possible. Absolutely, man. If ever there is an event that you want to give it a shot at, the other thing you can try too, watching replays is a really good way to get into a nice little bit of a rhythm. That's how I started doing commentary. I started watching replays and kind of watching the cameras and seeing what I could do and monitoring the track. And yeah, if you're ever interested, feel free to message me, man. It's a bunch of fun. I thoroughly enjoy doing the commentary gig, you know, especially with classes of cars that I'm not particularly interested in racing and more enjoy watching. You know, the Indy cars are hard for me not to race because I enjoy racing them so much, but the commentary gig's a lot of fun. I really do thoroughly enjoy it. And now we wait for the event to start. Nikita will be taking the field to green. Top 3 will be Nikita, Joe Dirt, and Heel Toe Hero. Ian McClure there in P3. Merchant and Hi-Fi round out the top 5 with Ben Grabo sitting P6. Folks, this right here is our closest battle in the championship. Ben Grabo and Pingu. I believe it's just 7 points separate the two of them. And right now, Grabo will come out of this race, I believe, ahead in the championship. But there's a whole lot of racing to go, folks. If you're just tuning in, welcome. This is Can-Am SimSports DTM Championship, Round 5. If you're watching on YouTube, it is wrong. At the Red Bull Ring, and we are about to go green. Nikita, nice launch off the green. Everything's relatively clean coming down into turn 1, up into the Niki Lauda curve, and everybody keeps it planted, keeps everything on the ground. But Dave Coors running a little bit wide to get around the cars ahead as we now go nearly 3 wide down into turn 2. Beautiful job by all these drivers keeping everything nice and tidy. Dave C really making a good job of using that extra lane to get around all the traffic. Beautiful start from Dave C. As now he continues to charge forward and bringing a train of cars behind him. Nate Z follows through. Tarka just behind now. And Something Fierce now down to 13th. Not really where he wants to be situated at the moment. But Nikita is now getting passed for position by Joe Dirt into the Niki Lauda curve. We're side by side down the next straightaway on the approach to turn 2. These guys are dueling wheel-to-wheel combat, folks. And all that's doing is checking up the field and giving everybody behind an opportunity to strike. Nikita, not used to fighting at the beginnings of these races, has a commanding pace. But, folks, we saw it in the free practice session. You could throw a blanket over the top 8 in practice and be within a second. The pace is not a huge differential. As now Joe Dirt ekes his way out down into Red Bull Mobile and shooting down the front straightaway. Nikita's still tucked into the slipstream, hoping to find an opening onto turn 1, but it's not going to happen. Great defense there from Joe Dirt. You kind of saw him fade a little bit to the inside to try to block the move. So now we see a lot of movement back in the back. I believe that's Spiky Cactus trying to sneak in there on turn 2. Not going to make it happen. But not giving up yet. He's got an immense amount of pace and a lot of steam behind the 75 machine, and he's just trying to find something to get around the cars ahead. Pingu tucking in behind the slipstream there in P8. Cactus really trying to make a move here. Not wanting to waste too much time. But the fight up front still not over. Nikita now ready to make a move again on Joe Dirt. We might see a bit of a lunge, bit of a jab coming down into turn 1. But it doesn't seem to happen. Nothing coming together for Nikita right now. Probably just playing the waiting game and being patient. But this is the sprint event. You don't want to be too patient. Patience is for the following race. That is for the feature event. Double the length, double the points. You need to get track position early in these feature or these sprint races to maximize points on the weekend. Is now Nikita, less than 2/10. Ebbs and flows does the gap. Nice, beautiful wide exit from both drivers, using every inch of the track. And now Nikita's really got a good run on the exit of Red Bull Mobile. But the gap opens up on the straightaway. Potentially some setup differences between the two drivers, giving a little bit more straight line speed to Joe Dirt. And now the gap up to 4/10. But accordion's back to less than 2/10 into turn 2, folks. This fight is heating up. Not sure which way it's going to fall. These guys have raced each other very aggressively all season. When they get beside each other, it is usually an incredible bit of excitement to watch. Nikita has incredible pace, but Joe Dirt really making a good job, or doing a good job of making that car about as wide as it could be. And not giving Nikita much opportunity to get around. So you see the gap starts to open up a little bit into turn 1, and now into turn 2. Nikita's starting to get some late lunges in here to try to make a move happen. So we're now 6 laps into our 22-lap sprint race. We've got a car off the track. I believe that is Tarka in P17 off into the sand trap. Nikita faster than his last lap, but still not fast enough to catch Joe Dirt, as now the gap at the front of the field is opened up. Just at the exit of the corner, we were at 5/10. I want to see where we land here in turn 1. Nice, beautiful entry there from Nikita. That was a lot tighter. Previous lap, we were about 4.5 short, and this time he was 3/10 behind P1, and it's starting to close in. He's taking a lot tighter lines, a lot smoother entry, and more aggressive on these corners, trying to find every square inch of track that he can claim to find the upper hand. Joe Dirt just not giving him the opportunity to get around. Joe Dirt putting up a great defense, but now we're side by side down the front straightaway and firing up to turn 1. Who is going to be braver on the brakes going into the Niki Lauda curve? It will be Joe Dirt, but only just. And Nikita bowing out of the fight going into 2 and opting to take the slipstream, but poking back to the inside through turn 2 and into the Worth curve. They are still door to door, and now Nikita reclaims P1 from Joe Dirt, but Joe's got a great run down into the penultimate corner. And it seems like we're going to be drag racing again down the straightaway, but now we've got second place Merchant in the mix, who's been a complete shadow the entire beginning of this race. And suddenly, he's now fighting for the lead. Merchant now leading the field with a very wide exit into turn 1. But now leading the fight over Nikita. And Joe Dirt's falling back into P3. What a race we've got, folks. Merchant coming out of the woodwork and saying, you know what, folks? I think I want to lead this race for a little bit. And just went hard on the offense. And managed to capture P1 from Nikita. But we've got a 3-way battle from the front of the field into turn 1, and I think it's going to be very close. A little bit of a squeeze there from Joe Dirt. Very late on the brakes, and a defensive maneuver from Merchant. Joe gets around Nikita, but Nikita fires back around on the exit of the Niki Lauda curve and firing into turn 2. Merchant 3/10 up. Nikita leads Joe Dirt by about 3 more tenths. And the fight continues to rage on. Catching up here with the chat. Fisher says you do a great job. I'd want to do commentary with somebody if I did it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. This is fantastic. Going to fire up the Rich Energy car and run some laps. See you tomorrow for the final race. Good luck, man. I can't wait to see you. Fontana's a great track. You'll love it. I think you will absolutely love it. It's so much fun to race, especially when you get a full grid out there. So good luck, man. Thanks for dropping by, and we'll be here for another little while as we've got, I believe that's Ben Grabo spun around in the back, and now Pingu, Cactus, Waylon Crace, Dave C, and it looks like Nate Z might even get around before the end of this corner, and now Joe Dirt getting run a little bit wide on the exit of 1. Side by side with Merchant now. Merchant really holding down that inside line, trying to make it work. But a great run from Joe Dirt on the exit of turn 2 and through the Worth curve. Switching back goes second place Merchant to the outside. Following behind him is Nikita with a beautiful slipstream train. Folks, the front of this race is just bonkers. I can't focus on any one driver because right when you think somebody's about to take the lead, the whole thing gets turned up on its head. And now Nikita making a lunge for P1 on second place Merchant. It's going to be a test of braveness on the brakes into turn 1. Nikita will come out victorious into turn 1. Side by side are second place Merchant and Joe Dirt, but they end up single file out and down into turn 2. But now Heel Toe Heroes trying to get in on the fight, now side by side with Obscure Hi-Fi, and tucked in just behind Joe Dirt. Second place Merchant now really trying to reel in Nikita. The fight for the lead is insane, but Nikita's starting to find his footing, starting to do what he does best, and that is drive away from the field. Merchant has to find that conviction, find that pace, that focus that he had in the first 8 or 10 laps of this race, and dig deep to try to catch Nikita before he runs away from everybody. Is now a big lunge from Joe Dirt back in the back of the field. Little bit of a wobble, and he brushes the side of Merchant, and that's going to cost Joe a lot of time, giving Heel Toe Hero an opportunity to get by. And now Heel Toe up into P3 side by side with second place Merchant. Folks, this guy is third in the championship and looking to defend it fearlessly. Beautiful run on the exit of the Worth curve, and that gets Heel Toe Hero up to P2. The top of the leaderboard has shaken up so much in the last 5 laps. John's in the chat says, now this is a race. This is a race, and this is the sprint race. We've got a feature race that is double the length to follow this. What an incredible display of sim racing we've got. What a squeeze from these two. Joe Dirt really trying to minimize the amount of track that second place Merchant has access to on the exit of the Niki Lauda curve. Kind of using heel toe hero as a pick. But we've seen this move work great for Joe Dirt in the past. Merchant with a decent run out of the curve, but not enough. Still side by side. And Nikita now up a second, almost 2 seconds, and growing as the fight behind has raged on and slowed these guys down. Heel toe hero maintains P2, and Joe Dirt back up to P3. Starting to single file out a little bit here, but don't sleep on Tactical Nuclear Pingu. Side by side now with Obscure Hi-Fi into turn one, late on the brakes. Maintains that inside line, and Hi-Fi runs a little bit wide, and Pingu also spins. Both drivers have now big incident, no contact, but just a little bit off the balance line of the car, and all it took was getting off that grip line, and they were around into turn one, and it looks like that was second place Merchant, spun on the entry to Worth curve. A driver that creeped his way all the way up into the lead for a moment, came out of nowhere, and now down into P10 as Nikita commands the field as usual from the lead of this race. 1.8 seconds to the good on the approach to turn one. Heel toe hero now facing a lot of pressure from Joe Dirt. We know Joe's got the pace. Does he have the consistency? Does he have the speed to make it happen on Ian McClure here for P2? This is your battle for the second step on the podium, and realistically the tightest battle we've got on the field right now, though Dave C. trying to work over Ben Grabo. Ben really just trying to recover from the incident he encountered earlier in the race, but this is now going to be a driver we're going to want to watch as the race rolls on, because Merchant has got a lot of clawing back to do, and he is driving with a purpose. That was every bit of the car going off onto the apex, trying to recover some lost time. I don't foresee this race ending quietly for second place Merchant. I think this is going to be a very aggressive drive for these remaining 5 or so laps. Heel toe hero still facing the pressure from Joe Dirt. Only has to hold him off for another few minutes. 5 laps remain in this 22-lap sprint feature or sprint event. But folks, the good news, if you think the racing's good now, we've got a whole feature race to follow. Is now Joe Dirt with a great run on the exit to the penultimate corner, and it seems like a really good run down into the front straightaway, diving into the slipstream of the back marker ahead, using every bit of it he can, and that's enough to get him around heel toe hero and fired into turn one. And that is for the second step on the podium. It's Ian McClure now looking at the taillights of one Joe Dirt 9. What a drive, folks. The front of this field has been anything but quiet, anything but tame, anything but mild, and it continues to evolve. I don't know what that camera angle is, but it's terrible. As now Joe Dirt works to try to chase down Nikita, whom I believe is going to walk away from the field and take the checkered single-handedly unless he has an incident. Ben Grabo now chasing Waylon Crace for a position in the top 5. What ended up being an incident for him, costly in the championship implication, fortunately turned around as Pingu also a few laps later had an incident right there where the drivers just left, knocking it back down to P10. So this is what Grabo wants to see for the championship. Beautiful move down onto the inside of turn 2 and onto the approach to the Worth curve. Nice line from both drivers, really kind of opening the gap there for P5 and dispatching a back marker with ease. He's got a little bit of a gap to close in to catch up to Spiky Cactus. A little bit of time to do it, but I don't know that he's got the pace to quite lock it down. What a drive, folks. What a drive. Nikita faced the most amount of pressure this evening that I think he's faced all season in this championship. And it has been truly wonderful to watch this guy's championship really come back to him. Massive amounts of pace. I mean, just oozing pace, but hasn't had the results until last week. But now, showing everybody on the grid that with a purpose, he is the driver to beat, as Something Fierce now chasing down Haas with just 2 laps left in this event. Is it enough time for him to make a move? Really trying to get around. Nice entry to the penultimate corner, but Something Fierce goes wide and Haas switches back. Nice amount of momentum coming out of the final corner, but it won't be enough for Something Fierce. Folks, the slipstream on this track seems to be incredibly powerful. We've seen drivers kind of duck into the backmarker slipstream here on that front straightaway and gain a huge head of steam on the approach to turn 1. And it just makes you wonder how impressive the slipstream might be for these guys. As now the clock starts ticking for these backmarkers. Can they get it done? Can he get it done? With just a few moments left in this race, the opportunities are going to start to become few and far between. He's really got to try to make something happen, hopefully on the exit of this corner or the entry to turn 1. Those seem to be the best, most common passing opportunities. That and side-by-side through the Worth curve might be able to get a little bit of head of steam on the exit if you switch back and set yourself upright. But the gap seems to have opened just a little bit for Something Fierce. And now Shadow Puck having a look. Don't think it's going to be enough. I hate that camera angle. I don't think we're going to have enough time here. Haas is going to have to make a massive mistake for this to pan out in his favor. But I don't think he will. We'll follow him to the line, but I believe this is going to be Haas, Something Fierce, and Shadow Puck had a brief bout of pace there. Almost looked like he might have the opportunity, but didn't make it stick. And that is your sprint race of the evening. Nikita sitting P1, Joe Dirt P2, Heel Toe Hero P3, Ben Grabo P4, and Spiky Cactus will round out your top 5. Waylon Crace, Dave C., Obscure Hi-Fi, Second Place Merchant, and Tactical Nuclear Pingu will take you to the top 10. Nate Z, Haas, Something Fierce, Shadow Puck, Orange Hat 44 is your top 15, with Tarka and Dismodu rounding out the grid. What a sprint race that was. But folks, we have a 44-lap feature still to come. We're going to take a brief break, catch some air, rest my voice, and we'll see you guys here in just a couple minutes for qualifying for the feature race and leading into the 44-lap feature. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is, if you're just tuning in, the Can-Am SimSport DTM Championship. Contrary to what YouTube says, this is round 5 of our 6-round championship. We're at the Red Bull Ring this evening. We've just completed our sprint event for the night. We are about to get into our full-length feature event, which is usually double the length of the sprint. However, that would be 44 laps, and right now it says 46 laps. If you're just joining us, welcome. So thrilled to be here with you all this evening. We've had some fantastic racing in the feature race. Absolutely incredible. And I cannot wait to see, it was a sprint race, and I cannot wait to see what we have in the feature. We will be qualifying once more for the feature event. To my knowledge, the qualifying forecast will be the same, i.e., very damp. Believe they're working through some technical blips, but yeah, these races are a lot of fun. If you've not watched them, if you've not witnessed them before, this is not an uncommon thing here. The racing is super high quality. Having 3- and 4-way battles for the lead, I haven't seen all season, but definitely some nights where it gets very intense at the front of the field, especially for those final podium spots. But the way things run around here, they'll have a 10-minute free practice in the evening, followed by a 5-minute qualifier for the sprint race, which is half distance. At the conclusion of the sprint race, they'll disable the practice session and go into another 5-minute qualifying and a full-distance feature race, which we're about to see now. Actually, we're about to see the qualifying and then the full-distance feature. Really enjoy doing the commentary for these guys. Hope to be back again in the future to do it. Mondays, I typically do other stuff on Mondays, but it's been fun to get into this. Depending on the frequency of their championships, I could definitely see myself back in the booth if they'll have me. I've really enjoyed watching the racing. I've really enjoyed commentating on the racing. There's great quality of racecraft here at Can-Am SimSport. They've done a fantastic job of really creating a high-quality, top-tier group of MS2 drivers, and for that, I very strongly applaud them. And we've seen some of their drivers over in America's Racing League, too. I mean, it's no surprise. Those guys do fantastic over in our leagues. And now, we get ready for the action. And as I expected, rain is falling here at the Red Bull Ring. But I do not believe that will stop our drivers from putting down some absolute flying laps. Currently trackside on Nikita. We will follow the first driver out of the pit box, which will be Obscure Hi-Fi. Joe Dirt there with a pit lane violation, it seems. Possibly releasing the pit speed limiter latch just a little too soon. I cannot begin to understand how difficult it is to handle these cars around this track in the wet. They already look like a bit of a handful in the dry, coupled with, you know, pretty heavy rain, a very damp track. I really imagine that, especially getting out onto these curbs like that, the painted surfaces are going to be very slick and very unforgiving. Just kind of shows the caliber of driver we're dealing with here in CASS. Everybody here very capable. They understand what it takes to get a car around a track in a pretty rapid manner. Is now Hi-Fi working to complete his first flying lap to post hopefully a very competitive time. Down into the Worth curve. Looking a little slow, looking a little slick, though, too. Down into Rint. And in the short chute, into Red Bull Mobile. Hate that camera angle. Obscure Hi-Fi, currently sitting third in the championship. Post of 56.376. Now we know from race 1 we are capable of getting into the 54s, as Nikita now putting a 55.420. And second place Merchant right there behind, 55.703, 2.8 tenths back. And a nasty bit of an off track there. And into the grass. It's really going to be costly to the qualifying efforts here for second place Merchant, who needs every lap he can get in this wet weather to really put down a banger of a lap. And now Heel-Toe Hero will be hoping to answer. We also want to focus in on Joe Dirt on the exit of 2 and through Worth. Got a local yellow. Won't be significant here in the private qualifying, but worth noting nonetheless. It's now Nikita through Red Bull Mobile down the front straightaway. Will be looking to improve over Heel-Toe Heroes now, 55.323. Can Nikita gain any time here? Cannot. That was a slow lap for Nikita. Only going to have about enough time to do about 2 more passes as Joe Dirt crosses the line. No clean time posted. Oh, no, I apologize. He does post a clean time, 55.670. And Cactus now up 6 tenths, putting himself 1/1000th of a second ahead of Nikita. Or, I'm sorry, behind Heel-Toe Hero. I apologize. Behind Heel-Toe Hero, 1/1000th of a second is as close as you can be without being the same. Spiky Cactus now sitting P2 and seems pretty happy with that time as he's retired back to pit lane. Nikita on a pretty consistent run here. 200ths off the pace of his fastest lap. A little bit of a wiggle there on the exit of Rint and down into Red Bull Mobile. Not sure he's going to be able to gain enough time, if any, on this pass, but he will get one more pass, 2 tenths to the negative. Heel-Toe Hero. No time gained there for Heel-Toe Hero. Joe Dirt trying to capitalize. No time gained for Joe Dirt. Second place Merchant currently sitting P3, and this seems a little bit slowly. A lot of sliding coming from the P3 driver right now, and that is retiring to pit lane. Nikita, we know he's got the pace to qualify up front. Can he make it happen? He goes off and into the gravel trap. Nikita will start P4 unless he gets dethroned by Obscure Hi-Fi back here in P5. And he does. Nikita now bumped down to P6, and Joe Dirt looking for an impressive qualifying lap, but it doesn't look that way right now. Nearly 2 tenths slow. This final sector is so challenging in the wet, and it sends Joe Dirt around as well. Ben Grabo now hoping to capitalize on the loss of time from both drivers ahead and bump Nikita from the top 5 Ben Grabo crosses the line. A little bit of time gain knocks Joe Dirt down to P7, and Ben Grabo with a 55.480. Something fierce in the box. Dave C, Pingu, everybody's boxed, and that is qualifying. Done and dusted. Heel Toe Hero will come off the line. Taking the field to green in P1, Spiky Cactus. P2, second place Merchant, Obscure Hi-Fi, and Nikita round out your top 5. Ben Grabo, Joe Dirt, Something Fierce, Dave C, and Tactical Nuclear Pingu will be your first 5 rows in the feature event. 46 laps tonight. A little over double the distance, but not by much. Drivers are clearing their heads, clearing their minds, stretching their arms, setting up the cars, getting any sort of potential pit strategies ironed out and situated in case they need them. They hope they don't, but if they do, they're ready and waiting. Second place Merchant will be starting directly behind our pole sitter, right where he wants to be, but he'll be holding off none other than a championship leader, Nikita, sitting back there in P5. Third row back on the inside. Ben Grabo with great qualifying efforts tonight over Tactical Nuclear Pingu sitting back here in 10th. Ben really just trying to get through this evening. The car in one piece and finishing ahead of his championship rival as we await marshal lights to come on and bring the field to green. Another driver we want to watch tonight is our P7 driver of Joe Dirt. A lot of pace in that car, especially in the dry. And we are off and racing. We jump back to Nikita to see if we've got any sort of race here from the front of the field. They fan out coming into the entry of turn 1. Spiky Cactus rockets to the front of the field. Side by side on the exit of Niki Lauda corner. And second place Merchant duking it out with Cactus for P2, allowing Heel Toe Hero up ahead to drive away from the field. Folks, that seems to be the strategy. The front runners in the field is now Nikita facing pressure from Hi-Fi. Nikita having a great race 1 after clearing the pressure from the drivers behind, but struggling on pace in race 2. Currently sitting P5, but Hi-Fi takes a nice inside line and has a beautiful exit out of Red Bull Mobile, and that is P4 for Obscure Hi-Fi. Second place Merchant now going to start facing pressure. Or I'm sorry, applying pressure to Spiky Cactus. Very late on the brakes goes second place Merchant into Niki Lauda. Not enough to get around, but I think he's going to have a move going into turn 2. They go side by side, nosing his way into the inside of the entry to Worth curve. Doesn't get it done, but Cactus knows he's there. He cannot rest. He cannot wait. Now Joe Dirt trying to get around Obscure Hi-Fi, who's since been overtaken once again by Nikita. Big wide exit from Hi-Fi, and Joe Dirt takes advantage and gets around, now chasing Nikita, a battle we've seen play out far too many times this season and in immense fashion in the last race. Spiky Cactus now chasing down Merchant, seems to have gotten around. I don't know if it was an off from Cactus or a pace differential, but Cactus down to P3. Reportedly having issues with steering the car later in the race. Could be a tire issue that could cause issues here in the feature event. Now the front of the field spreads out a little bit. Joe Dirt not facing a lot of pressure from Hi-Fi. He's still hanging back there just a little bit. And Nikita trying to chase down Spiky Cactus in P3. Dave C We've seen Dave race in a few races, both here with CASS and with ARL, and he's got quite a lot of pace backing him up. Ducks into the slipstream down the main straightaway. Trying to get something done, and behind him goes Waylon Crace to the inside. Beautiful maneuver up into turn 1, but the move's not done yet. As now they're side by side through turn 2. Beautiful switchback there from Dave C to try to respond, but is not going to get it done. Waylon Crace now up to P12. And that demotes Dave C down to 13th. And Crace not giving up here. He's going after another. Nate Z firing it on the outside of the short chute down into Red Bull Mobile with a beautiful wide exit there, using all the track available. And now 2 positions in just 3 corners. Waylon Crace up to P11 and chasing down the top 10. Now Cactus facing pressure. I'm sorry, Nikita getting around Cactus. Cactus facing pressure from Joe Dirt. Joe's rapid. We've seen him in the previous races. We've seen him in the sprint race tonight. A lot of pace behind that machine. And he does seem to fire it onto the inside of Rindt. And down the short chute, Joe Dirt has the position. Done and dusted is Spiky Cactus down to P5. Joe Dirt now chasing down Nikita in P4, who is chasing down Heel Toe Hero. Seems to have had an incident because second place Merchant leads the field now. And Joe Dirt lunging on the brakes into turn 1. Doesn't have enough to make it happen. Listen to the throttle control on turn 2 as we now have Tarka spun on the exit of turn 1. Big gap now opening between Nikita and Joe Dirt. Joe really doing everything he can to hold off Cactus. And also gain some ground on Nikita, who's now making a move on the inside. Can he get 2 for 1? Big cut from second place Merchant to defend that inside line. Could have been very treacherous had that gone poorly. Nikita stays in P3 after a very late attempt at a position. Big late defense from second place Merchant. I think that caught Nikita off guard a little bit there, as now Spiky Cactus starting to nose back up the field. Racing against Joe Dirt, who's stuck behind Nikita now. The side draft going to be super powerful for Spiky Cactus. On the short chute down to Red Bull Mobile, squeezing Nikita on the outside edge of the track. Cactus now back up to the bottom step of the podium, but they're going to drag race down the front straight, and we're going to go 3 wide down into turn 1. Who's going to be the last on the brakes? And it looks like Nikita comes out of that scuffle ahead. Spiky Cactus trying to fend off Joe Dirt now. That was a bold entry to the Niki Lauda curve. But everybody came out the other end clean as a whistle with a big dive from Joe Dirt, switching over onto Cactus. But Cactus is going to answer on the inside of Red Bull Mobile, but he doesn't have the run. He clipped a little bit too much of the apex, and now Joe Dirt with the run down the front straightaway. Cactus falls behind, and now Ben Grabo in the side draft up to P5 and bringing a train with him. And the train is Obscure Hi-Fi. Not going to get anything done on the entry to 1, but that doesn't mean we don't see an answer. Coming into 2, Hi-Fi looks to be late on the brakes and on the inside line. Cactus falling like a ton of bricks. Just a few moments ago, sitting in P3, now down to P7 and fighting for his life to stay in P6. Side by side, but a beautiful run from Hi-Fi on the exit of Worth Curve and down into Rindt Corner. I think the position might just be to Hi-Fi here. Cactus now down to P7, but tries to respond with a switchback on the short chute down into Red Bull Mobile. Not going to get it done. And I believe Hi-Fi might have it on lockdown here to cross the lap lane. But it's not over yet. Cactus looking to answer with authority into turn 1. Not going to make it stick, though. Bows out of the battle. And Hi-Fi up to P6. The front of the field, folks, is still intense. You can throw a blanket over the top 4. Everybody's right on top of one another. Second place Merchant leading a charge of very hungry drivers behind. Heel Toe Hero, your pole sitter for the feature race, and a big lunge from Nikita and a late defense that causes a big pile up behind Nikita and Joe Dirt. Both collected in the incident. And that looks like damage on the number 23 machine. Nikita in pit lane, or is this a drive-through? This seems to be a drive-through. Maybe a track limit violation per chance. Very late defense from second place Merchant. That checked up Nikita and the cars behind, I believe, is what caused the incident we just witnessed. And now Heel Toe Hero will be facing the pressure from Ben Grabo. Ben Grabo just handed a podium spot on a silver platter. Is two of our fastest drivers now, currently sitting 10th and 12th. These other drivers that were sitting right there in the top 8, top 10 now have an opportunity to fight for a podium, as now Cactus, also breathing a sigh of relief, fell down to P7 in the running order. Happy to see himself back in the top 5. As we go up into turn 1, a train of BMWs firing it around Red Bull Ring tonight, the short club circuit. Turn 2 is a parade of bumper-to-bumper beamers. And Ian McClure back here, Heel Toe Hero, trying to find a nice run on the exit of the corner. Just not getting the momentum he'd like. Merchant doing a real good job of defending these more predictable moves, but some of these late attacks from Nikita, I think, have caught him a little bit off guard, and he's had some very late and aggressive protections. Trying not to drop any spots. Everybody's just kind of tucked into the slipstream right this moment. Nikita will be chasing down the field now. And Waylon Crace goes around. And Nikita back up to P8. Joe Dirt into P11. Lot of ground to gain for Nikita. It is doable, as now Dave C. facing pressure from Joe Dirt. Joe Dirt with a beautiful inside attack. Snakes to the inside of Dave C. And on the entry of Worth curve, Joe Dirt is on the outside of NZ. Nate can't hold him off. They're side by side, firing it down the straight and into Rint. Joe Dirt is a very aggressive but clean offensive driver. Fantastic about getting around people in nice, tidy manner. And now Joe Dirt back up to P9, chasing down Nikita. Second place Merchant now facing pressure from Ben Grabo, who had a late lunge early in the lap to get around Heel Toe Hero, trying to make it 2 for 1, but Merchant not giving up the position just yet. They snake through the S's, and the beautifully awful camera angle returns to hide all the action, including the pass, as now Ben Grabo up to P1, and Heel Toe Hero trying to get around second place Merchant on the inside of the short chute down into Mobile. Not sure if it's going to stick or not. McClure bows out of it. A train of cars in the slipstream down into turn 1. You see them all peeking around trying to get a lunge, but none of them feeling like they've got the head of steam they need to get around. But, folks, Ben Grabo just put a second on second place Merchant. I'm not sure if Merchant's fallen off pace or Ben just had that much in reserve and was waiting to burn it. But we're now 15 laps into tonight's feature event, and the fight up front is anything but settled. Is now Obscure Hi-Fi currently sitting P3 in the championship. I believe he's sitting P3 in the championship, looking to lock it down. And move his way into the top 3 this evening on the race in the feature. Nate Cia trying to apply some pressure here to Dave C. Dave, no stranger to some defensive driving, has had a lot of great opportunities, or a series of great defense laps this evening. Really good job of making the car a lot wider than it actually is, and making the job for the passing driver much more difficult. Now Tactical Nuclear Pingu trying to get a run on Spiky Cactus, just about 2 or 3 tenths back from series admin. It's Hi-Fi now trying to lunge on the inside of turn 1, decides against it. Pingu facing a little bit of pressure from Cactus, or I'm sorry, Cactus facing a little bit of pressure from Pingu. Down into turn 1. Pingu not really showing a lot of pace this evening here at Red Bull Ring, but pretty consistent. Sometimes that's all it takes to win these races. Qualified 7th, up to 6th. Ben Grabo with the most impressive recovery here, up to P1 with a 2-second lead over second place Merchant in P2. Folks, that's an incredible drive from Ben Grabo, and fantastic for his championship outlook. Will comfortably situate him ahead of Tactical Nuclear Pingu if things continue to go as they have. The driver of the number 23 machine here. Obscure Hi-Fi still trying to find a way around. It looks as if he's gotten around Pingu and now chasing down Cactus. Sealto Hero sets fastest lap of the race with a 55.323. And the fight continues to rage on here in this top 5 scuffle. Shallow entry to turn 1. Hi-Fi trying to work something over. Pingu trying to find a mistake from Hi-Fi. These guys are stacked on top of each other. Now Nikita all over. I'm sorry, just got around Something Fierce. Not sure if that was a pace differential or Something Fierce potentially had a mistake that cost him some significant time. But now Nikita will try to chase down Pingu for P6 and salvage some points for the championship. Folks, this is your championship leader. Involved in an incident earlier in the race, a late defense maneuver from second place Merchant caused a little bit of contact and checked him up. Behind him was Joe Dirt, who also got collected in the incident. Nikita seemed to get a drive-through penalty. I did not see him stop for tires, fuel, or repairs. So I am unsure if that was a track limit violation or potentially there was damage and it was a visual bug from Automobilista 2, as it seems Nate Z has gone off and into the tire wall. Significant damage on the front end of that machine. Will cost a lot of time in tonight's event. Hi-Fi trying to find an opening here. Might go for it, bows out of it, decides better of it. Cactus not leaving a lot of room to get around him. Doing a great job defending from the slower cars or the faster cars behind. Really making them, trying to force their hand and make them work for it. Not wanting to give up the position. Rolling over and taking it. All of these guys from P2 to P6 or so are within P7 even maybe. Or I'm sorry, P6, yeah. Within about striking distance of one another. It's just when they decide to strike. The opportunities are a little bit few and far between. It's orange hat. Now chasing down Tarka. As our race leader is racing lap 22 of competition. We are almost halfway complete with tonight's feature event. Down the front straightaway. Pingu and Hi-Fi. Trading blows, back and forth they go. Tactical Pingu back up to P5 and Hi-Fi back down to P6. And Nikita currently sitting 8.4 seconds off the race leader. We want to watch this delta, folks. I think we're going to see a big incident back in the back as that Hi-Fi is spun around, trying to get the car pointed the right way. Something fierce goes around Hi-Fi quickly from P6 down to P9. P10 as Dave C now gets around. But Nikita, very capable driver, very easy for him to trim down a lap delta and a time delta. I think we'll see some of that unfold here as second place Merchant continues to run his race, P2. Oh, and he goes wide. Commentator's curse is real for second place Merchant this evening. Keeps it off the wall. Doesn't seem to lose an incredible amount of pace or an incredible amount of time, I apologize, but that is from P2 down to P6. 4 positions lost in just a split second for second place Merchant. Now on the recovery charge. Folks, Niki Lauda curve is deceptively challenging. It doesn't look like a particularly challenging corner. It's a tight right-hander, sure, but it's an uphill off-camber turn that really upsets the balance of these cars if you hit it just the wrong way. It does not take much, and it's like the weight just disappears from the middle of the car and it floats through the corner. And if there's not enough to answer to that in the suspension and the aero, the car just kind of suffers. And I believe that was somebody stopped in the middle of the track. Not sure who it was. But now Cactus chasing down heel toe. Everybody here from P2 to behind, P2 to P5, gifted a spot. And where Merchant was facing the upper hand, he had pace. He could get through some of the slower cars, some of the back-marking cars, some of the midfield pack. But right now the midfield pack surrounding him is Nikita, who is one of the fastest drivers we have in the series, and Joe Dirt, who is as quick as Merchant on most nights. These guys are going to provide a big challenge for him to get around and recover any amount of time, as we've now got 20 laps remaining in tonight's feature event. Pressure's beginning to mount for heel toe heroes. Spiky Cactus slow and steady here through Rent and down the short chute. Final corner, beautiful run. We've had another retirement here this evening. 2 retirements that I've seen so far. Cactus looking in the inside of 1, deciding against it, bowing out of the turn, just trying to keep his race clean. The gap opens a little bit on the exit of 1. As Ben Grabo has expanded the gap to 5.5 seconds over P2. Race for third here. Second and third, I suppose. Pingu's racing for third. Cactus racing for second. And how about a round of applause for our race leader? Not sure where all this pace was in the feature or the sprint race, but man, Ben Grabo coming alive in the feature tonight. 28 laps on the board, and once he got up front, he commanded the field. And if you're going to command a field, the feature race is the one to do it, folks. You get double points from the feature event, or from the sprint event, which is significantly impactful to the championship fight between him and Pingu, who finished behind him in the sprint race and is currently positioned behind him in the feature. Great drive from Mr. Ben Grabo. Currently sitting P1 in our 46-lap feature. Rounding the line for 29 laps of competition. 28 laps complete. And I thought maybe the safety car was going to be out because I saw the gap start to change. The fight at the front of the field is starting to simmer down just a little bit. It seems as though the gaps are starting to expand as that's Heel Toe Hero wide on exit of Red Bull Mobile. Back down to P7, and Nikita collects another spot to add to the comeback drive as he now gets 2 for 1. P4 to P2 on the entry to turn 2. Nikita driving like he owns the race, and now what was just a few laps ago an 8.5-second time delta is 6.5 seconds, and he is coming for the race leader with a vengeance. Incredible maneuver there. Taking advantage of two drivers duking it out. It was Cactus and Pingu. Nikita said, I'm not letting y'all hold me up. I'm not waiting for you. I'm going around. Fired it around the inside into turn 2. Jumping from P4 to P2, showing that he's not going to gain all his time and regain all of his places tonight just because people have had incidents. He's showing that he's capable of making some insane passes as well. Massive props to our current championship leader, Nikita. Pingu now facing a little bit of pressure still from Spiky Cactus. This battle not quieting down too much. Just trying to maintain the gap. Pingu now up to P3. Be a great recovery. 2 weeks in a row to have a decent result. Pingu needs every point he can get to minimize the damage that Ben Grabo has done this evening to the championship. With Ben finishing ahead of him in both races, it's going to make it very difficult for Pingu to maintain a gap in the championship battle and recover any lost ground. Cactus really doing a good job tucking into the slipstream of Pingu and staying there with beautiful run out of Red Bull Mobile. See him snake back into the slipstream there of Pingu. Just doing everything he can to get around. But an opportunity not yet presenting itself. Waylon Crace now trying to get around Stur Haas through Rent. very late on the brakes in the short chute and into the ultimate of the final corner. Beautiful run out of Red Bull Mobile. You see him snaking back into the slipstream. These guys are using every ounce of slipstream, and he dives to the outside. Beautiful attack line from Waylon Crace. They'll go side by side through Niki Lauda. And Waylon Crace up to P2, but he has... I'm not sure what is happening. I guess he ran wide and collected himself into the wall. And Haas will maintain P11. Massive upset there from Waylon Crace. This track is really providing a level of challenge that is somewhat shocking to everybody tonight. Struggling to keep the cars planted where they'd like them to be. Is now Pingu answering Cactus. I apologize, I missed the pass for P3. Pingu getting a little impatient, costing him some significant time there. And getting himself out of the slipstream. And Joe Dirt and second place Merchant now to make it 3 wide, almost 3 wide, into turn 1. Merchant's going to get the outside line on Joe Dirt and put himself back up into P5, really trying to put recovery mode into overdrive tonight. Door to door with Tactical Nuclear Pingu. Through the entry of 2, and on the exit, he has a great head of steam going into Worth Curve, but not enough to keep up with the championship admin. And now firing it down the straightaway, Merchant peaks. Thinks about it. Into Rint, not enough. Down the short chute, big off behind. I believe that was... Who was that Dave C? I don't know who just went off, but a big slide back behind these drivers. I believe that was Tarka. No, it was not. I don't know, but we're not going to leave the action here. These drivers, another 3- and 4-way battle for the final step on the podium is now Spiky Cactus starting to drive away from Pingu, because Pingu's starting to face pressure from not 1 but 2 drivers that are rapid this evening. Merchant all over the back of Tactical Nuclear Pingu. And Spiky Cactus loving every bit of this fight. It's given him the opportunity to spread his legs, or stretch his legs. God, I've made that mistake twice. I apologize. It's not that kind of stream. Spiky Cactus gets to stretch his legs, and the guys behind are really just duking it out and costing each other an immense amount of time. Joe Dirt into the slipstream, late onto the brakes for second place Merchant. They're going to go side by side into Niki Lauda corner again. Merchant really abusing that painted surface there on the outside runoff. Shoulder checking, a little bit of bumping and rubbing, but nothing too chaotic, nothing too crazy. These guys are familiar with going door to door with each other. They race each other very hard week in and week out. Merchant now with the lead in the battle for P5. But Joe Dirt with a beautiful run down into Rind and in through the short chute. As the final corner comes along, who's going to have the run down the straightaway? It looks like it's going to be second place Merchant with a great run, though, coming behind from Joe Dirt. He's going to poke in late on the brakes into turn 1. Who is going to be smoother and later on the brakes? It's going to be second place Merchant. Maintaining that outside line, not giving way to the attacking driver. Merchant really doing a great job defending the position there from Joe Dirt. As now we look to be going side by side again into Rint with a beautiful late attack from Joe Dirt. Trying to keep it locked down, but Merchant maintains position through Red Bull Mobile and into the the front straightaway. Look at him hug the inside line now, middle lane to inside. He's going to try to fade to the outside and hold that interior lane and run Joe Dirt wide, but Joe Dirt uses that momentum from the painted surface and gets around Merchant, but Merchant responds. Fires it up the inside and into turn 2. That might have actually been a track limit penalty. forcing him to yield the position back within a certain amount of time for track limits. I don't know for sure. But folks, now Cactus and Pingu side by side. We've got 2 fights on our hands here for 2 different steps in the top 5. Joe Dirt on Merchant. He gets around. Merchant hoping to answer. Spiky Cactus leads the 2 of them into turn 2. Big bumps there for both drivers of these BMWs. Spiky Cactus through turn 2 has the lead. Second place Merchant trailing behind Joe Dirt. And I don't know if Merchant has the pace to let this drive not get away from him. As the gap's now open to half a second, I think Merchant truly did have the speed he needed. I'm sorry. I truly think Joe Dirt had the speed he needed. He was just trying to find a way to get around Merchant, who put up an incredibly well-placed defense. But ultimately, just a few laps short. We now shift further up the field here to Pingu and Spiky Cactus, also sitting about a half a second apart from each other. And Nikita, who has closed that gap to the race leader down to about 5 seconds. It accordions a little bit, but we're hovering right about 5 seconds on average. Snaking there from Spiky Cactus up ahead, and that's potentially a back marker that I saw doing that. Back marker may have been trying to get out of the way. It looks to be possibly Stir Haas. But Pingu trying to chase down Cactus. A little bit of lap traffic, thought he might be in the clear, might have had an opportunity, but seems as though that opportunity has come and gone. With just 4 laps remaining in tonight's event. Joe Dirt with a very wide exit. Folks, let's have a word. Let's have a round of applause once again for Ben Grabo. What a commanding drive. In terms of championship fight, I'm sure he would have preferred to see Pingu a little further back in the running order tonight, but I mean, really maximizing his points that he could get. An early issue in race 1 in the sprint. Recovered nicely and decided he was going to turn up the charm a little bit in race 2, turn up the heat, and annihilate the field. Nikita closing the gap, but not enough with the amount of time that remains. All he has to do is keep it situated for another 3 laps, 2.5 laps or so, and the win will be his. Excuse me. The rest of the field kind of fanned out a little bit. Spiky Cactus, though, starting to face a little bit of pressure there from Pingu. Pingu trying to make some last-minute Hail Mary attempts, but he's going to open the door now for Joe Dirt, who will go side by side. They drag race down the front straight. Who will be later on the brakes? I imagine it will be Joe Dirt. Pingu bowing out of that one early, and that's Pingu down to P5. Joe Dirt up to P4, but Pingu's not done just yet. Late lunge on the brakes there into turn 2 and around the bend. We've got another big off. That was second place Merchant into the tire barrier. down to P6, and now has to race the remainder of this race without a rear wing. Joe Dirt trying to get around Pingu. This battle will come down to the checkered flag unless there is an incident. Is now Pingu facing pressure from Joe Dirt. Joe fantastic on the late entry to turn 1, and we've seen this move a bunch. Little bit of a squeeze into that middle lane, but Pingu not giving him the room. He says, no, sir, you want to get around, you're going to have to make your own lane. Joe doing everything he can to try to get around. This is the final lap of competition, folks. The opportunities are drying up fast. Down into Rindt, you see a late lunge. He's made this move before. Both drivers make contact, and they're both off and into the grass. Not how he wants to make the pass. And Joe Dirt, self-penalty on track, allowing Pingu back around. Folks, that's the sportsmanship we like to see here at Can-Am SimSport. That will be your top 5 across the line. Second place Merchant came dangerously close to losing P6 with a late incident, slid and into the tire barrier, and fires it at Mock Jesus into the tire barrier at the edge of turn 1. Heel Toe Hero with a strong start to the race and then slowly started to fall down and off the pace. Spiky Cactus yo-yoed the beginning of this race, up and down, started P2 or 3, and then ended in, the first few laps down in P7, P8, but back up to P3. Ben Grabo, Nikita, Spiky Cactus are your top 3 finishers. Pingu, Joe Dirt, Merchant, Heel Toe Hero, Dave C, Something Fierce, and Obscure Hi-Fi take you to the top 10. Sturhaus, Orange Hat, Tarka, Waylon Crace, Nate Z, and Shadowpuck will round out the rest of the field to P16. And that is round 5 in the books. What a race we got to witness. Tons of excitement there on track. Tons of fun to watch. These guys did a fantastic job. Put on quite a show. Truly an enjoyable experience to watch. As usual, Can-Am SimSport does a fantastic job putting on one hell of a show every week. And we appreciate everything they do. That being said, though, folks, that will be the end of tonight's race broadcast. We will be back tomorrow for our AMS2 America's Racing League Formula USA Season 1 Championship for 2026. The championship round, our ultimate finale at Fontana under the lights. Got a night race on an oval. Should be a blast. Looking forward to that. And that will round out the Formula USA Championship. We'll have a 2-week off season then, followed by the IMSA series. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'll get a schedule posted for the rest of the weekend, or the rest of the week. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. Great race to everybody tonight at CASS. Fantastic job. Thank you so much. Take care, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Good night, everybody.